Hello everyone. So welcome to the second part video on review of oscillations. Already in the first part video, right, we talked about the concept of what is periodic motion, and one of the special types of periodic motion where the motion will be repeating, but the motion is going to happen in to and fro manner or back and forth manner. That is what we call as the oscillatory motion or oscillations, or we can also say vibrations. And then if the oscillatory motion can be represented by a single harmonic function like a sine or cosine function, we will be calling it as the harmonic oscillations. So further, if you have the motion means, so if you look at the linear oscillations, if the displacement of the particle from the mean position either ways is given by a form like this, x is equal to a cos omega t plus phi or a sin omega t plus phi, then what we will see is that the restoring force, if you have the displacement expressed in terms of this kind of a function, we call it a sinusoidal function, the restoring force we will see that will be equal to minus some constant into x. In other words, what we can say is that the restoring force will be proportional to what displacement value, but in terms of direction it will be obviously opposite, because if the particle is moving to the right side from mean position, so this is the mean position, if the particle is moving towards the right side from mean position, means the restoring force acting on it will be towards the opposite direction, it will be to the left. Always the restoring force will be towards the mean position. So such kind of an condition, if it is satisfied, right, that's what we will be referring to as the simple harmonic motion or SHM. This is what is the case with the linear SHM. So linear SHM means we'll see that force, restoring force is proportional to minus x, means the acceleration also will be proportional to what, minus x. In fact, the standard equation will be like the acceleration will be equal to minus omega square into x. This omega is what we call as the angular frequency, and the period of the oscillations will be given by what, 2 pi by omega. Similarly, in the case of the angular SHM, we'll have almost analogous relation. Here what is it? The standard equation A is equal to minus omega square into x. In the case of the angular SHM, there the acceleration means we will refer to as angular acceleration will be equal to minus omega square into theta. So like the way we have the relation between the acceleration and the displacement, here we will have the relation in terms of what, the angular acceleration and the angular displacement. In case of the linear SHM, we will talk about the restoring force. In case of the angular SHM, we will talk about the restoring torque. Because when from the mean position, if the object is given a angular displacement, there will be a torque acting exactly in the opposite orientation. Like if we give an angular displacement clockwise, means the restoring torque will be acting anti-clockwise or trying to rotate the body anti-clockwise. So that's why we call it as the restoring torque. So torque acting on a body in the rotation motion we have seen, right, torque acting on a body is equal to what, I into alpha. That's how the torque is related to the angular acceleration of the object. We'll look at some examples on that. So in this video, what we are going to do is we are going to look at specific examples of both the linear SHM as well as the angular SHM. First we will check how the motion, because we are here putting the condition of SHM, or rather the equation that represents SHM, right. When we say condition of SHM, means we will generally be referring to these two things. The acceleration of the body should be like, it should be in an equation like this, A is equal to minus omega square x type, or if it is the case of the angular SHM, or a body is having angular oscillations, then to check whether it is an angular SHM or not, we should have the equation in this type of the form. Alpha should be equal to what, minus omega square into theta. So first thing is, the examples that we look at, we will check how they are becoming SHM. After that, remember, when we compare the given equation with the SHM equation, right, we are going to get the value of omega. Omega means what? The angular frequency. From omega we can find the period of oscillations. So in the examples we are going to see, first we will talk about how these oscillations are becoming SHM. Second, we will also talk about the period of those oscillations. So let us just now cover this concept of how do we find the period of an SHM. So whenever we say an SHM, right, it is a linear SHM, means the standard equation is what? A is equal to minus omega square into x, like that. If say for example I am giving you an equation and saying that this is a linear SHM, I will give an equation like this. A is equal to minus 4 into x, like that. The moment we compare this equation with the standard equation of the SHM, what is the thing that we will be able to see here? Omega square will be equal to 4, which means what? Omega will be equal to 2. So if omega is 2, from here we can talk about the period, right? What is the period value? 2 pi by omega, which is what? 2 pi by 2, that will be equal to what? Pi. We have to look at what is the units. Same goes with the case of the angular SHM also. If you have the standard equation, right? What is the standard equation? Alpha is equal to minus omega square into theta. This is the standard equation, right? If somebody is giving us an equation saying, okay, so this is the equation for the angular acceleration of a particle which is performing oscillations, relation to the angular displacement, like that they give an equation. Let's say they are giving us like this. Alpha is equal to minus 3 into theta, like that. Now when you compare this with the standard equation, we can see that it is in the same format. First thing is like that, when we get the acceleration equation, if it is like the acceleration is proportional to minus x. See, when you say acceleration is equal to minus 4x, means what? Basically the acceleration is equal to some constant into minus x. So this is what we call as the condition, the checkpoint. If acceleration is proportional to minus x, means yes, that represents SHM, linear SHM. If angular acceleration is proportional to minus theta, means yes, it represents what? The angular SHM. Once that is over, the confirmation is over. Now when you compare the given equation with the standard equation, compare it, what we will get? Here we will straight away get omega square is equal to 3. Omega square 3 means what? Omega will be equal to root 3. From there again we can find what is the period value. Period will be what? 2 pi by omega. So that is how we will be able to find the time period of SHM. How do we do it? We will take the given equation, compare this with the standard equation, whether it is the linear SHM or angular SHM. When you compare it with the standard equation, we will get omega. From omega we will find what is the period value. Okay, so we will just go through the examples one by one. First, very common one, the spring mass system. Here we are keeping this spring mass system on a horizontal surface. So if you just leave it like that, right, the spring will be in its natural length position. The spring will be in its natural length position. So this is what we will be. So wherever the mass is there, that is what is our mean position, and that will correspond to what? The natural length of the spring. So mean position means the displacement will take it as 0. Displacement of the mass will take it as 0. Say we will just give it a displacement x to the right side. Then remember, in Newton's laws we talked about how the spring is going to behave. We are moving the mass to the right side, means what? It is like we are elongating the spring. Spring will have a tendency to go back to the original length. So the restoring force that is developed in the spring, right, will be directly proportional to the amount of elongation or amount of compression we create. That's what we express it as what? F is equal to kx. But look at here, the direction will be opposite. The k will be the spring constant. If you want to express this in terms of the vector notation, how it will come? The restoring force will be magnitude wise, it will be equal to k into x. X is the amount of elongation that we create in the spring. But if you want to relate it to the displacement of the mass, remember, we are moving the mass to the right side. So displacement is what? To the right side. The restoring force acting on the mass will be to the left. So as a vector notation, we should keep a minus. That's why the minus comes. Now this is the force acting on the object. mass is m, so the acceleration coming because of that, let us say, is a. So force can be represented by what? M here, right? So from here a is equal to what? Minus k by m into x. Now when you look at this expression, what is it we are able to see? The acceleration is proportional to minus x, which means what? This satisfies the linear SHM condition. We are able to see that, okay, it is able to satisfy the linear SHM. It's not over yet. The next thing is what we said. So we'll check. After that, we will see what is the period of these oscillations. So how we will have to do it? We have to compare this with the standard equation of the SHM. A is equal to minus omega square x. Compare. We will get omega square is equal to k by m, which means what? Omega will be equal to root of k by m. What is the time period or period value? T is equal to what? 2 pi by omega, right? So means, I'll just erase this part because we are already done with this idea. So we are done with, the checkpoint, we are done with it. Now we are just going to get the final answer for the period of the oscillations. So check it, what will be the final expression we are going to get. The period of oscillations T is equal to what? 2 pi by omega, right? Means what is it? 2 pi by omega is what? Root of k by m, means 2 pi root m by k will come. So this is what is the period of oscillations of the spring mass system. Now we'll have a doubt. So here, what is the analysis we have done? So from the natural position of the spring, we have taken the example of where we are like elongating the spring. If we compress the spring by a value x, remember again the restoring force will be what? It will try to take the spring back to the original position, means the spring will try to push the object away with how much force kx. So here also we are going to get the same kind of relation. F will be equal to what? Minus k into x will come. So it doesn't matter. So whether we talk about the elongation or compression that will give for the spring, the oscillations are going to satisfy the SHM condition. From there we will even have what is the period value for these oscillations. One thing that we need to keep in mind, not just here, in the other SHM examples also, we will keep reiterating it. The period of these oscillations, look at the period value, does not depend on the amplitude. So it's not like we'll get these kind of questions in JEE level, but it's a very interesting theoretical question, like how much elongation will give initially and release it, right? That is what is the maximum displacement that the block can have from the mean position. So whatever is our x value that we are giving, right, that is not going to come in our period formula. Look at it, period depends upon what? Mass of the block and spring constant. It does not depend upon the amplitude of the oscillations. This is an important thing. We'll see in not just in this case, but even in the other examples of the SHM also, we will see that the amplitude will not affect the period of oscillations. Now here we have kept the spring mass system in the horizontal surface. The doubt that we will have is what if we keep it, like this is what we had discussed before, right? So we are keeping it in the horizontal position or orientation. Here the thing is the mean position, right, will correspond to the natural length of the spring. Instead, if I keep the spring mass system in the vertical orientation, we are hanging the mass, then what happens is the spring would get some elongation already. Why? To balance the weight of the block. Like if we just leave it, means it would get elongated first to balance the weight of the, because weight of the block is what? It will be mg, right? So to balance it, the spring would have already got some elongation. So this is what will be our what we can say as the new mean position. New mean position. Now from here we will give some little bit of a pulling down or pushing up. So again here the displacement will be taken from the new mean position. So the relation will be same. What is it? the restoring force will be equal to what? Minus kx. So which means the only thing that will be different is if you keep the spring mass system vertical, means the mean position. If you keep the spring mass system horizontal, means the spring will be in the natural state when it is corresponding to the mean position. But here the mean position will be attained when the spring is already a little bit elongated. That is the mean position. With respect to that mean position, the oscillations will happen. That is the only difference. Otherwise, from here, right, since we have the same equation, f is equal to minus kx, means ma is equal to minus kx. So a is equal to what? Minus k by m into x. So we will get the same formula for the period of oscillations. That will not change. Even if we are keeping the spring mass system on the inclined plane, what happens is here, like the way we are arranging here, what happens? The component of weight for the block, which is mg sin theta, along the plane, right? To balance it, the spring will get some elongation, because it's like, some component of weight is pulling the block along the plane. To balance it, the spring will get elongated. So here, the mean position will be represented by what? Elongated state of the spring to balance what? To balance mg sin theta. That's it. But otherwise, once it is already little bit elongated to balance mg sin theta, from there we just give it some push along the plane, because here the oscillations will be along the plane. We just give it some push along the plane, up or down. We will see that it will perform SHM. Again same, the restoring force will be equal to what? Minus kx. So thereby we will have the same period. So whether we will keep the spring mass system in the horizontal plane, or we keep it in the vertical, or we keep on the incline, the difference will come where? The location of the mean position. That's it. But the period value will be same for all of them. Okay. Now we can talk about various other modifications of the spring mass system. Like we can have two springs connected adjacent. Both are attached to the block of mass. Here just think about it. If you just pull this block down by a value x, spring 1, spring 2, both will be elongated by the same value x. So the restoring force in the spring 1 will be what? Kx up, k2x up. So the overall restoring force, we have to say, means vector wise we should put minus. Why? Because it is in opposite direction, because the displacement is down, the restoring force will be upwards. The overall restoring force means what? K1 into x, k2x. So what is it? Minus of k1 plus k2 into x. So here in case of springs, right, even in the laws of motion chapter, we talked about the idea of effective spring constant or equivalent spring constant. Like we have two springs, right? If we have to replace both of them by a single spring of constant k, that's what we call as the effective spring constant. So if you replace them, means what is the thing that will have? F is equal to minus kx, right? Now compare this equation with what we have. Comparing what we will get? The effective spring constant will be what? K1 plus K2. So in case of this arrangement, that's what we call as the parallel arrangement of the springs. The effective spring constant will be equal to what? K1 plus K2. So if you have three springs arranged like that, then what is it? K1 plus K2 plus K3. Four springs, K1 plus K2 plus K3 plus K4, like that. The period of oscillations, right, will be given by what? If you just have one single spring, means 2 pi root m by k, right? So in place of k, what we will get? The k effective. If you have just two springs in parallel, means what is the k effective? K1 plus K2, right? That's it. Three springs means what will come? In the denominator, what will come? K1 plus K2 plus K3 will come. So this type of arrangement is what we call as the parallel arrangement of the springs. Okay. Now you see the arrangement that is given in the adjacent diagram. Here also we are going to get the same final result. This will not be called as a parallel. Parallel means what? We will arrange like this, so both the springs will be connected to the body in this manner. So this is what is the parallel. If you want to have 3 parallel means what? Like this we will have 3 parallel. So this series arrangement, parallel arrangement, all these things are something that we'll keep hearing more often when we go to the +2 topics. Like we will talk about the series combination of capacitors, parallel combination of capacitors, series combination of resistors, parallel combination of all these things. We'll keep talking about it. Now look at this now. So we have the mass connected to one spring on either side. Think about it. If you just give a displacement to the mass x down, then the I will call it as the upward spring and this is the downward. Okay. If you pull the mass down, the upper spring, right, is kind of elongated. So the restoring force it lacked, just the value of it will be what? Opposite direction, means it will be upwards. What is the value going to be? K1 into x. Now the downward spring or the bottom spring is actually what? Compressed. So it will also apply a restoring force to go back to the original state. Means what is it going to be? K2 into x. Now we can see what is the overall restoring force? K1 plus K2 into x, but it will be upwards. So if you want to go for a vector relation, right, we should put a minus. Why? Because the displacement of the block is down and the restoring force is up. Now you can see this is, if you like think of it like equivalent spring concept, right? The K1 plus K2 term, that is what is our effective spring constant going to be. So either we have 2 springs in parallel like this or 1 spring on either side of the mass. In both the cases, right, what is the effective spring constant? K1 plus K2. And what will be the period of oscillations? Just remember 2 pi root m by that K effective concept. Now we'll see, like, if you have the series arrangement, like we have springs connected one to another like that. This is 2 springs. We may have 3 springs. We may have 4 springs. Like that we can have whatever. This is what is called as a series arrangement. If you have a series arrangement of the springs, then in the Newton's laws of motion, we have discussed about this. Maybe you can just go and check that video once. The series combination of springs, right? If you want to replace these 2 springs with 1 spring, with a spring constant K, that is what we call as the effective spring constant or the equivalent spring constant. The effective spring constant for the series combination is given by what? 1 by K is equal to 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2. So from here, if you take an LCM, means what we will get? 1 by K is equal to what? K1 plus K2 by K1 K2. So what is the period of oscillation formula? 2 pi root m by K, right? So which means what? 2 pi root m into 1 by K. So what is 1 by K? K1 plus K2 by K1 K2. That's it. So this is what is the period of oscillation for the series combination. If you have 3 springs in series, then what we will have? The final formula is this: 2 pi root m by the K effective. If you have 3 springs, means what is the effective spring constant relation? 1 by K is equal to 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2 plus 1 by K3. So from here we will get the effective spring constant. If you have 4 springs in series, what is it? 1 by K is equal to 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2 plus 1 by K3 plus 1 by K4. From there we will get the K effective. Just we have to put the K effective in the formula, that's it. So this is about the series and parallel combination of the springs, and this is an important area in terms of the questions. Now here we are not going to go through the derivation of it. We'll cover it in the detailed video of oscillation chapter. If you have a single spring of constant K with 2 mass on either side, here we have a mass m1, here we have mass m2, then the period of oscillation for this system, right, will be given by 2 pi root. See, normally if you have a spring and a mass, right, what is the period of oscillation formula? 2 pi root m by K. Mass will come here, spring constant will come here. Here we have only 1 spring, but here we have 2 masses. Now for both these masses, right, the period of oscillation is given by 2 pi root mu by K. Again I am saying, that detailed derivation we are not going through here. We will cover it in the full chapter video. What is this mu? This mu is going to be called as the reduced mass of both these objects. It's a very, specific example. How do you get the reduced mass? Mu value, right, will come from this relation. 1 by mu is equal to what? 1 by m1 plus 1 by m2. So if you take an LCM, means what we will get? 1 by mu is equal to what? m1 plus m2 by m1 m2. Take a reciprocal, means what we will have? Mu is equal to what? m1 m2 by m1 plus m2. That's it. That is what is the reduced mass. We will have to use which formula? The T is equal to 2 pi root mu by K formula we have to use. So this is about the different kind of spring mass systems and how the way we look at it. All this is what the linear SHM. So all the discussion we had so far is about the linear SHM. Now we will go and look at the angular SHM. So particularly remember, a simple pendulum for small oscillations, or we have to say small angular oscillations. This is important. Okay, so we should not leave this word. For what? For small angular oscillations. What is it? We will see. So we will have a rigid support, the fixed point we can call it. From there, with the help of a rope or a wire, we will connect a bob, the pendulum bob. We will give a small displacement. See, if you just leave it like that, means it will be held, it will orient itself in the vertical direction, where the tension in the rope will be exactly balancing the weight of the bob. So here we will go with the assumption that the rope or the wire doesn't have a mass. That is the assumption we are going with. Now if you just displace it a little bit, then what we will see, it's a very common observation. What we will see in the first part video also, we have shown that clock, right? The pendulum bob is going to oscillate with respect to the mean position. The thing is, we will have to first check and confirm whether this is an angular SHM or not. Then we will talk about the period of those oscillations. So first thing is what we have to check, whether it is an angular SHM or not. Then we will talk about the period of oscillation. So how do we check whether this is going to perform the angular oscillation, angular SHM or not? We have to check this with the angular SHM standard equation we have. What is it? Alpha should be equal to what? Minus omega square into theta. This is what is the standard equation, right? We have to check whether the oscillating bob actually satisfies this relation or not. So assume that we are giving a anti-clockwise angular, because look at what is it? We are giving an anti-clockwise angular displacement theta. The bob has come here. On the bob there will be tension acting into the rope. There will be the weight mg. If you draw a vertical line, means this will be what? Theta. So we can resolve the weight into components. Mg cos theta will be along the wire. Mg sin theta will be what? Perpendicular to the wire. Now the angular motion of the bob will be driven by the torque, right? If you look at the fixed point, this is the fixed point, right? There are actually three forces, actually two forces, but we are seeing it like three. One is the tension, other is the mg sin theta, other is the mg cos theta. So the weight we have divided into two components. This is the position where all the forces are acting. This is the fixed point. Remember, how do we measure the torque or the turning effect of any force? From the fixed point, we have to draw the R bar. This is what R bar, right? You see the tension force as well as the mg cos theta. Both are how? They are along the R bar line. Means what? They are either parallel or anti-parallel. What will be the torque? Because remember, what is the torque formula? Torque produced by a force is what? R cross F, right? If R bar and the force vector are either parallel or anti-parallel, then what is the cross product going to be? 0. So which means the tension force or the mg cos theta, the component of weight mg cos theta, both of them will give us what? 0 torque. They will not be able to produce any torque. Now the only torque that will get produced will be because of the mg sine theta. So we'll just focus on the mg sine theta. So see, where is the mg sine theta? It is in this direction. From here, if you draw r bar, right, it will be like this. What is the angle between them? 90. So what is the torque? Torque will be equal to what? R, the value of a length, into the force mg sine theta into sine 90. Why? Because the angle between the force and the r bar is what? 90 degrees, right? So sine 90 is anyway 1. So the torque value is what? mgl into sine theta. This is the torque value. But torque is a vector quantity. How do we get the torque direction or the turning effect orientation? By the cross product relation. So how do we get it? Torque is equal to what? R cross F. Now R is in this way, F is like this. So if you do R cross F, right, what is it? It is in the clockwise rotation sense. So R is like this, F is, so R cross F means what? It is in the clockwise rotation sense. If you have to express this as a vector relation, right, the torque is a vector quantity. If you want to write it as a vector relation, we must also indicate whether it is a clockwise orientation or anti-clockwise. But before we go to that step, there is one more important simplification that we will have to do here. And that simplification we can do only because we have made one assumption at the beginning of the entire discussion. What is it? For small angular oscillations or for small oscillations. What do you mean by the assumption of small oscillations? If you are giving a very small angular displacement, then in that case sine theta value will be approximately equal to tan theta will be approximately equal to what? The angle itself. But we should keep in mind that the angle should be taken in terms of radians. This assumption, we have seen this in the basic math discussions and we will keep using it. In couple of other places also we will use it. This is what we call as the small angle assumption. For small angle, right, if you take the angle in radians, even you can check this on your, like you have a scientific calculator, you can check it. Put theta is equal to 0.00018 and type sine. You will get the value will be almost as what? 0.0018 will come. So if that is the case, for small angular oscillations, the sine theta can be approximate to what? Theta. So what is the modified form? We have mgl into theta. Now we will talk about representing it as a vector, because our angular displacement given is what? Anti-clockwise. The restoring torque is what? Clockwise sense, which means what? If you have to express this as a vector, we should express it like what? Minus mgl into theta. Why the minus has to come there? Because the angular displacement is anti-clockwise and the restoring torque is what? Clockwise. Vice versa. If we try to rotate it in the other orientation, we will give an angular displacement clockwise. Then what will happen? The restoring torque will be anti-clockwise, like that. So what we have here is the torque is equal to what? Minus mgl into theta. So remember the assumption we made, the wire or the string or the rope is what? Massless. That is the assumption we have made. So there is only the bob which is rotating with respect to the axis passing through the fixed point. So what is the moment of this? Is like a single particle, right, which is at a distance L from the axis of rotation. What is the moment of inertia? I is equal to what? ml square. Remember, torque acting on an object will be equal to what? I alpha, right? I is what? ml square is equal to minus mgl into theta. Now we are almost at the final stage. M gets cancelled, 1l also gets cancelled. So what is it? We'll have alpha is equal to minus g by l into theta. What is it? Alpha is equal to what? Minus g by l into theta. Now compare this with the standard equation of angular SHM. What is it? The angular SHM standard equation should be like what? Alpha is equal to minus omega square theta. So first of all, yes, when you compare these two, we are able to see what? They are in the same pattern. alpha proportional to minus theta. Yes, it is proportional to minus theta. So we are confirming that it is angular system. But under what assumption? Small oscillations. If that is not there, means we would not be in a position to simplify that sin theta into theta. Only then we are able to get it. Okay. Now look at it. So if you compare this, right, alpha is equal to what? Minus g by L into theta, right? Compare these two equations. Straight away what we can say, omega square is equal to g by L, which means what? Omega is equal to root g by L. From here we'll have t is equal to 2 pi by omega, 2 pi by root g by L. What is it? T will be equal to 2 pi root L by g. Again, one more thing. The period of oscillations here, you can see what angular displacement we are giving or the amplitude we are giving. That is not going to be coming in the period of oscillations formula. In the spring mass system also we have seen. Here also we can see. What is it? The period value will not depend upon the amplitude given to the object which is performing SHM. But here we have a condition, that is what? The angular oscillation that will happen should be small oscillations. Okay, so this is about the, what is it? The simple pendulum, how we will get the time period. Now, most of this is like, very fundamental stuff. But where do we get questions from? We'll usually get questions from the modifications of the simple pendulum example. How do we modify? Think of it. We can modify because if you look at it, right, it's like what? We have a fixed point from which we have a wire and a bob. Simple pendulum setup. If we can, so this is the first modification we are going to look at. If we can change the temperature, what is going to happen? The length of the wire can be changed. If, say for example, L is the length of the wire and the coefficient of linear expansion is alpha, and if we increase the temperature by d theta, then in thermal expansion, right, we have seen what is the final length or effective length. This formula we have seen in the thermal expansion. What is the final length? L dash is equal to what? L into 1 plus alpha d theta. Here the temperature change we can either express it as a d theta or delta theta. So generally when do we put the notation d, differential notation, to tell that it is a very small change in temperature. So if the length is changing, right, then obviously if we have to tell what is the period of oscillation, what we will have to say? The new period of oscillation will be equal to what? 2 pi root L dash by g will come. That's it. So L dash means what? L into 1 plus alpha d theta. So this is how the in fact you can see, if you heat it means the length will increase, right? Increasing length will result in what? Increase of the time period. Here there is one more thing that is there, which we call as the binomial simplification. Just keep this in mind. What is the binomial simplification? We have seen this already in case of the gravitation chapter. When we talk about the acceleration due to gravity at a height h, binomial simplification formula will come. If you have like 1 plus x whole power n, if x is very small in comparison to 1, right, the value of this will be approximately equal to what? 1 plus nx. They are the first two terms of the binomial expansion. I am not going into the details of it. You can check this in our basic math video, and also you can check it in the gravitation chapter. Now let us come back to here. So what is the thing that we are having? The new period of oscillation is equal to what? 2 pi root. I'll just keep L and G as it is. 1 plus alpha d theta whole power half. Root means what? Whole power half. Now alpha is generally small. We have seen this in the case of the thermal properties also. We have looked at the actual values. They will be in terms of what? 10 power minus 3, 10 power minus 5. If the temperature change is also small, then we can compare it like what? This 1 plus x whole power n. This x is very small. N is half. Then using binomial simplification, what we can write? 2 pi L by g into 1 plus nx. N is what? Half. This is approximate by using what? The binomial simplification. Okay. So this t dash is equal to 2 pi root L dash by g is the actual period formula. But we can even simplify it further by using what? The binomial simplification. This is one modification. The other thing is what? So here we have changed the length part. So rise in temperature, increase the length. Decrease in temperature will reduce the length. we can also bring a change in terms of the g value. What is g? The acceleration due to gravity, which will be the net acceleration acting on the bob, isn't it? So if we keep the bob in a fluid which is having a density rho naught, of course the fluid density will be lesser than the density of the bob material. So if you take the density of the pendulum bob is rho and density of the fluid is what, rho naught, then look at this. First we will talk about the setup, how it will look like. So we have the bob. The thing we are doing is we are immersing the pendulum bob setup into a fluid. Fluid means we can talk of it like a liquid of density rho naught. Now what happens when you immerse it? There will be the buoyancy force acting on the bob. Buoyancy will be what? Upward thrust. If you take the volume of the bob is V, the true weight of the bob is what? Density into volume into G. This is the true weight. From true weight, if you subtract the buoyancy, upward thrust. What is upward thrust? Weight of the liquid or the fluid displaced. Fluid density is rho naught. We are assuming the entire bob is inside, right? So the entire V is the volume of the fluid displaced into G. This is what buoyancy. So from true weight, if you subtract the buoyancy, means what is this? This is the apparent weight. Now when you divide the apparent weight with the mass of the object, what is the mass of the bob here? That is what will give us the G effective. So the actual period of oscillation formula will be what? 2 pi root L by G effective. So because of the immersion in the fluid, the effective G value here will be reduced. Why? Think of it. Because of buoyancy, the net acceleration downwards will be what? Simply reduced. So just what we will do here, we will have to, so I'll just erase this part and write the final answer over here. So what is the G effective here? Look at it. What is the G effective value? So V gets cancelled. Then what we'll have is rho minus rho naught into G by rho. That is what is our G effective. Just substitute this in the formula. What we'll get? 2 pi root L by G effective means what? Rho minus rho naught into G by rho. This rho will go to the numerator. So finally what is the result we are going to get? Maybe we can remember the result. What is it? 2 pi root rho into L by rho minus rho naught. Here rho is what? The density of the pendulum bob material. Rho naught is what? The density of the fluid that is outside. You can see here. Why are we saying the period is going to get increased? So here we should not leave this. What are we saying? The period is going to get increased. Why? Because look at it. This is a rho by rho minus rho naught. It will be a factor which is more than 1. Isn't it? It will be a factor which is more than 1 because numerator we have rho. Denominator is what? Rho minus rho naught means something lesser. So fraction is what? More than 1. So thereby the time period, right, will be more than 2 pi root L by G. Time period will be more than 2 pi root L by G. So that is how we will be able to increase the period of oscillation. So if you have a pendulum setup, suddenly we have to increase the period of oscillation. What we will do, just instead of keeping it in the air, we will just look for if there is a fluid. Typically, like, we just go and put this in water. Then what we will see happening, the period of oscillations is going to be increasing. Okay. Now, we can also have cases where the acceleration or the net acceleration of the bob can be changed by keeping the pendulum in a setup. Look at this. If you have a simple pendulum which is inside a horizontally accelerated vehicle. So look at this. We are keeping the setup in a vehicle which is what? Horizontally accelerated. Let's say the acceleration value is what? A. We have talked about it in the Newton's laws of motion chapter also. The bob, if the vehicle is moving like to the right side, means the bob would have inclined to the left side. I mean the wire connecting the bob would have inclined to the left side. If we are observing it from the inside of the vehicle. So the observer is what? It is a non-inertial frame. What is the observer? The observer is a non-inertial frame. Now, with respect to the observer, if you see the pendulum bob will have an acceleration due to gravity which is g down. For every non-inertial frame, we will use the concept of the pseudo acceleration. So the non-inertial frame is moving to the right side means whatever the non-inertial frame is observing. So here it is observing the bob right. We will have to assign a pseudo acceleration for the object. Pseudo acceleration will be what? Exactly same as the acceleration of the non-inertial frame, but direction wise it will be opposite. So this we have already discussed in the Newton's laws, the idea of non-inertial frame and how do we observe things from the non-inertial frame. There we will bring the concept of the pseudo force and pseudo acceleration. Now here the net acceleration of the bob as seen by the observer is what? What is the net acceleration or effective acceleration, we can say? What is it? The angle between them is what? 90, right? So what is the net value root of a square plus g square? So this is what we will be calling as the g effective. So the period of oscillations will be what? 2 pi root L by g. So g means we are going to use g effective. G effective is what? Root of a square plus g square. Okay, so this is about the pendulum which is kept inside a vehicle which is horizontally accelerated. Now we can have one more arrangement. You can keep the pendulum in a vehicle which is sliding down the inclined plane. Think of it. We have an inclined plane of angle of inclination theta. There is a vehicle which is sliding down. Sliding down means what? Think of it. If there is a vehicle which is sliding down means it will be sliding down with an acceleration which is equal to what? The component of acceleration due to gravity along the plane, that is what? G sin theta. Now as it is, we have a fixed point and pendulum bob. This is the bob. We have the observer who is inside the vehicle. Now for the bob we will talk about what? The acceleration due to gravity g. But when you take the components, right, it can be divided as what? Into the components form? G cos theta and g sin theta. These are the two components. G sin theta will be along the plane, G cos theta will be perpendicular to the plane. Now when you are making the observation with respect to this non-inertial frame, we are observing the bob. The non-inertial frame is sliding down. So the pseudo acceleration we have to give for the bob will be what? Exactly g sin theta, opposite direction. Means you look at it, the net acceleration along the plane, when you observe it with respect to the person, right, it will be what? Horizontal, there will be no net acceleration. We will only have what? G cos theta. So the g effective will be equal to what? G cos theta. So what will be the period of oscillations? It will be what? 2 pi root L by, always it is the same thing, 2 pi root L by G effective. G effective is what? G cos theta. So like this we can have modifications by creating a setup. Now not only this, even we can have, like, you know, when we go to a height h above the surface of the earth, we go to depth d below the surface. There what we will see, if you are going to a height h above the surface, g will change there, right? What is it? G into 1 minus 2h by r, if we know h is small in comparison to r. Otherwise we have to use this general formula. What is it? G into 1 plus h by r whole power minus 2. G at a depth d also we have formula. What is it? G into 1 minus d by r. So if you go to the height or go to the depth, g value will change. Again, g is changing means the period of oscillations will be changing. Even if we go to some other planet, we will take the pendulum setup to some other planet. Remember, the acceleration due to gravity on the surface of a planet is what? Capital Gm by r square. Depending upon the mass of the planet and radius of planet, the acceleration due to gravity on the surface of planet will change. Which means the g value will change depending upon planet to planet. And hence the period of oscillation also will change. Like, you know, just to give you some comparison, if we say that the acceleration due to gravity on moon is 1/6 of acceleration due to gravity on the earth, then definitely that will be resulting in a change in the time period of the simple pendulum. Okay, so all these things are the modifications that we need to look at. Now when you talk about the simple pendulum, right, we have this very interesting example of what we call as a seconds pendulum. Now contrary to what immediately comes to our mind, seconds pendulum means some of us will think, okay, the time period is 1 second. No, the time period is going to be 2 seconds. Why? I'll tell you. I mean, the word seconds pendulum has actually come in a more kind of colloquial sense. It basically ticks after every 1 second. That's it. So if you're starting from here, it will go to the other end. It will basically do a tick. Means from one extreme to other extreme, right? What is the time required? It is half the period value. So half the period is 1 second, means what is the period value? It will be 2 seconds. So seconds pendulum will have a period value of 2 seconds. If we are trying to design a seconds pendulum on the surface of the earth, remember, we are looking at a period value which is equal to 2 seconds, right? What is the formula for the period value? 2 pi root L by G. G we can take it as what? 9.8 meter per second square. From there we can find what is the length of the pendulum wire that is required. So the effective length of the seconds pendulum will come out to be what? Approximately 1 meter. On the surface of that, it will come approximately as what? 1 meter to give us the time period of 2 seconds. Now if you go to some other planet, or if you go to a height h, or if you go to depth d, then definitely what is going to happen? The G will change. If the G is changing, means the required length of the pendulum also will change. The required length of the pendulum also will be changing. So these are interesting examples that we need to practice problems on. Now we will move into another idea or example which we call as the conical pendulum. So this one, right, we have even discussed in our Newton's laws of motion, circular motion case. We talked about it. Its conical pendulum is nothing but we have a fixed or rigid support. From there, using a wire, will connect an object, and the object will be rotating in a horizontal circle. So if you take the force components, right, the tension can be taken into two components: T cos theta up, T sin theta horizontal. T cos theta will balance the weight. The horizontal force, which is T sin theta, will provide the centripetal acceleration. Means P sin theta should be equal to what? Either we will say mv square by r, or we can say it as what? mr omega square. So what is the required condition? T sin theta will be equal to what? That will provide the centripetal acceleration. So T sin theta should be equal to what? mr omega square. From here what we will have is T sin theta by mr is equal to omega square, means omega is equal to what? T sin theta by mr whole root. Now once we get omega, means we can find what is the period, right? What is the period? 2 pi by omega, that's it. So that is about the conical pendulum. Now just like the way we have a simple object connected to the wire, the simple pendulum, we can also talk about a compound pendulum. What is the compound pendulum? Here the rigid body will be rotating. So rigid body which will be mounted onto the fixed point, it will be capable of swinging in a vertical plane about the axis passing through that fixed point. So this is the axis passing the fixed point. Why are we saying vertical? Because it will be driven by gravity. Like think of it, this is a rigid body. You just we have fixed it. You just give it some angular displacement. What do we see? We will see that it will be doing oscillations in a vertical plane. It's stopping immediately because there is obviously a lot of the effect of what we call as the damping effect or the dissipation effect. We'll talk about them as we go into the discussion. But here, if we are studying the ideal case of such rigid body which is rotating in the vertical plane, such a object is what we will refer to as the compound pendulum. So look at it. The center of gravity is where we can take the weight of the object to be acting. So here let us say that D is what? distance from the fixed point to the center of gravity. Now same thing, the mg can be resolved in terms of components, mg cos theta, mg sin theta, provided we are giving a small angular displacement of theta, like the way we have done in the case of the pendulum bob derivation. Right? Same thing here we are going to do. If the r bar is the position vector of the point where we apply the force from the fixed point, then we can see r bar is parallel to what? Mg cos theta, that component of weight. So the torque because of the 0. The torque will be only then because of what? The mg sin theta part. As it is, the torque value will be equal to what? Mg sin theta into d, because the angle between them is what? 90. And for small angular displacement, here also we have not mentioned it, but we should go with what the other thing of small angular displacements. Sin theta can be approximated to theta, which means what? Torque will be equal to what? Mgd into theta. If you are giving it a anti-clockwise angular displacement, means the restoring torque will be clockwise, same the way we have seen in the case of the simple pendulum. So in the vector notation, what we will get? We will get it like this. The restoring torque will be equal to what? Minus mgd into theta. Torque acting in the body will be what? I alpha, right? I is the moment of inertia. So from here what we will get? Alpha will be equal to minus mgd by I into theta. Now compare this with the standard equation. What is standard equation? The standard equation of the angular SHM is what? Alpha is equal to minus omega square into theta, right? When you compare this, I have kind of quickly moved on with the derivation here because it's like a repetition of what we saw in the case of the simple pendulum. So if we compare this with the standard equation, right, what is it? Alpha is equal to minus omega square theta. What is it that we will get? Omega square is equal to mgd by I, means omega is equal to what? Root mgd by I. That's it. Time period will be what? 2 pi by omega, means what? 2 pi by omega is what? Root mgd by I. So that's where we will get it as what? 2 pi root I will go to the numerator, I by mgd. So here I is the moment of inertia of the rigid body, m is the mass of the body, g is the acceleration due to gravity, d is what? Distance from the fixed point to the center of gravity. So this is what we will refer to as the compound pendulum. So the next idea is the torsional pendulum. So before we go to the torsional pendulum, right? So if you have a normal spring, which we also can call as the linear spring. The idea is when we elongate the spring or when we compress the spring, right? The spring will exert what we call as a restoring force. Whereas if you look at a torsional spring, the one that you see here is basically what? Torsional spring. If you create some twist, basically saying if you are attaching anything to the torsional spring and we twist it, basically giving some angular displacement, then the torsional spring will create a torque or a couple in exactly opposite sense. How? Let's just look at very simple example. I mean, I'm sure you know this animation kind of gives us a better perspective. This is something that some of us would have done, like you know, with the you know while you're swinging, sometimes you know we'll just twist the rope. So if you twist it right, once you release it, what you will see, it gets you know unwound, like you know, so you will basically be rotating in the opposite sense. Same way here, if you give the twist or the angular displacement for the torsional spring or even the rope, so to say, there will be a tendency for the rope or the torsional spring to come back to the original configuration. That is what we will be referring as the restoring torque. Just like a normal spring, right? The restoring force we will say is equal to what? Minus k into x, proportional to displacement, opposite in terms of direction. Here also the restoring torque will be proportional to the angular displacement but opposite in sense. So we'll have a relation like torque is equal to minus c into theta. So this c will be called as the torsional constant of the rope or the spring. So the linear spring is there and the torsional spring is there. In fact, so when we go to +2, right, in moving coil galvanometer, just make a note of it. In moving coil galvanometer discussion also, we'll talk about this torsional spring. Below the coil, we'll keep the spring. When the coil is rotating, right, there will be a restoring torque that will be produced in the torsional spring. The restoring torque will be always like what? Proportional to the angular displacement caused or the twist that is caused. Okay. Now let's see, if you are having a disc or any object like that, which is suspended from the wire. So the wire is now taken as the torsional spring. This is now taken as the equivalent of the torsional spring. This is suspended from the rigid support. Now we just twist the disc. If you are twisting the disc, say for example in clockwise sense, in one sense, by an angular displacement of theta, then as we discussed, right, the restoring torque will be like what? It will be like minus c into theta. It will be in opposite sense. Like, if you are giving an angular displacement to the clockwise, means the restoring torque will be anti-clockwise. So I'm sure, you have a disc like this, there is a rope. We just twist it in one sense, means the restoring torque will be acting on it to just bring it back. So if you look at it, right, torque is what? I into alpha is equal to minus c theta, which means what? Alpha is equal to minus c by I into theta. As I said, the c will be called as what? The torsional constant. So if you compare this with the standard equation of the angular SHM, right, what is the standard equation? Alpha is equal to minus omega square theta, which means what? By comparing both of them, what we see is that the omega square value will be equal to what? C by I, which means omega will be equal to root of C by I. Thereby we will have T is equal to what? 2 pi by omega, right? Means 2 pi root of I by C. So see, there is a kind of an analogous relation here. In case of the normal spring mass system, right? Remember what is the formula for the period? 2 pi root m by k. The analogous of mass here is what? Moment of inertia. Remember, in translation motion, inertia is quantified by mass. In rotational motion, the inertia is quantified by what? Moment of inertia. There we have the linear spring constant. Here what we'll have? The torsional spring constant. Okay, so just make a note of it. We'll see again about it when we go to the +2 during the discussion of the moving coil galvanometer. Now we can look at other examples also, but the thing is, we will not do the derivation of each of these. We'll quickly look at the result and move on. In the detailed video of the chapter, right, we'll go through each of these derivations also. So if you are having a ball which is moving through a tunnel along the diameter of the earth, like, if you can hypothetically, there is no diameter that is actually made like a tunnel, but if you can hypothetically think of like a tunnel like this, right, you can see here this is a tunnel. Maybe I'll use a different color, then we can see. Okay, so the red color one, right, I'm drawing the path here. This is what? The diameter tunnel. If you are putting a ball through the tunnel, means the ball will be attracted to the center of the, when it is reaching the center, right, remember, so if you think of the earth, so when it is reaching the center, it will have some velocity, so it won't stop there, it will keep going the other side. When it is going to the other side, now look at what will be the force. Force will be acting to the center of the earth. So which means what? The force is like the restoring force, and mathematically if you see, this is going to satisfy the SHM equation. The ball is going to perform what? SHM. And we'll just look at the result here. We are not going to do the derivation. The period of those oscillations will be what? 2 pi root of capital R by G. What is capital R here? That is the radius of the earth. Similarly, if you are having a liquid which is filled in a U-shaped tube, think of it. Okay, so the liquid that is filled up to a height h on either side of the U-shaped tube. Okay, so we are filling the liquid up to certain height. Okay, now when we are giving some depression in the liquid on one side, the height to which the liquid is filled is h. We are giving a small depression y, means the other side the liquid is going to raise, and because of the difference in the weight on both sides, the liquid column is going to perform oscillations. The oscillations, we can prove it, will be as per the standard equation of the SHM, which means the oscillations will be what? SHM. And there, if you look at what is the period of the oscillations, look at the formula, what will be the formula we'll get? 2 pi root h by g will come. So here the important thing is, as we said in the case of the other SHM also, the period of oscillation will not depend upon the amplitude. See, this y depression that you are giving is going to correspond to what? Amplitude, right? The period formula will not depend upon the amplitude of the oscillations. Okay. Similarly, I mean, there are other examples also we are not discussing. We will see some more examples in electrostatics also, as I said in the first part video, right? That this SHM idea will be linked to electrostatics. We will see that this will be also linked to magnetism. Apart from that, think of it. Okay, so if you have a vessel in which there is a liquid that is filled, and we have an object which is floating. So there is an object which is floating in the liquid. Floating means what? Partially immersed. If we just press this object a little bit, or we just pull it up and leave, then it will perform oscillations. When you look at these oscillations, right, they also will follow the same pattern, SHM equation. Like this we can have, I mean, if you see, right, we talked about the SHM is an idea that can be linked to various topics. Like, here these two examples, right, the oscillations of the liquid column in the U-shaped tube, or the oscillations of the floating object, they both satisfy the SHM relation. This is linking the properties of fluids to the SHM concept. Then we have seen how gravitation can be linked. Then we have seen how thermal properties of the matter can be linked. So that is the reason why this is an concept that can be linked to various other chapters, and that's the reason why it is important from the JEE mains or advanced perspective. Okay, now we will look at the concept of damping. So in the first part of the video, when we talked about the swinging, we said somebody has to stand at the back and then keep giving the push. Otherwise what happens? Just imagine yourself, you are just given one push and you keep swinging. After a while, what you will observe? The amplitude of the swing will keep getting diminished, and I mean, maybe after like half a minute or so, you will feel that almost you are not even swinging much, isn't it? So this is something that we will observe practically. That's why we will ask, anybody is there backside, means we'll ask, give one more push, like that. I'm not sure how many of you have actually experienced. Most of us would have experienced that. If not, if there is a opportunity, you can just go and find it out, because these are all the common we don't want to call it as home experiment or anything, but the common things that we'll see the applications of these oscillations, or particularly the effect of damping. So what actually happening here is the air resistance, not just the air resistance, there are damping forces, or the damping effect is happening at various connecting points. All those is a little bit more complicated phenomena. We will not discuss all of it, but what we look at is the simple idea of the damping that is created by the surrounding medium. Like you look at the spring mass system, right? Normally we just give it a little bit downward pull or push it up and leave it, means theoretically what is it? This should keep on oscillating forever, infinite amount of time. But if this is in a medium like air also, the air drag will operate. How the air drag will operate? If the block is moving down, means the drag force of the air will be opposite. Always the drag force will be opposite to the direction of motion. Means it will be doing so to say the negative work, because if the displacement is one direction, force the other, means what? The water will be negative. So as a result, what is going to happen? The energy of the spring and mass system will keep on getting reduced, and over a period of time that will result in what? Energy is going to be quantified in terms of the amplitude, right? Total energy will be represented by what? Amplitude. Remember the SHM energy formula, half m omega square into a square, that is the total energy, right? If the total energy is getting diminished, means what? Amplitude gets diminished. So over a period of time, the amplitude of these oscillations will keep getting diminished. But mathematically, how do we see it? The thing that we need to keep in mind is, even for the JEE advanced level also, we have only the application of the damping effect only to a certain extent. So if you look at the general representation of the damping forces, we will take them like directly proportional to the speed or the velocity of the object, but opposite in direction. So which means we can write the damping force as an expression as what? Minus B. B is a constant which represents or quantifies the effect of the surrounding medium in terms of how much the damping it is able to create. The drag force or the viscous force will be equal to what? Minus B into V. Now when you look at the overall force acting on the block, that is the body which is performing oscillations, right? Already we have a restoring force, that is minus kx, and additionally we'll have what? The drag force, which is minus B into V. What is force mass into acceleration is equal to what? Minus kx minus B into V. What is acceleration? Second derivative of the position, d square x by dt square. We'll bring both these terms to the left side. Negative terms will become what? Positive. V can be written as what? Dx by dt, derivative of the position. So the differential equation. So what is the differential equation? So these type of equations we call them as what? Differential equation. So the differential equation that we'll get here is what? M into d square x by dt square plus B into dx by dt plus kx is equal to 0. Now we are not going through the proof of it, but if you solve this differential equation, we are going to get what is the expression for the x. After solving the differential equation, we will get the expression for how the position of the particle which is in damped oscillation will vary with respect to time. So we can see here the A, which is the normal amplitude, multiplied by the exponentially decreasing factor. That's what we have to consider as the overall amplitude. So we can see that as the time is progressing, the maximum displacement keeps decreasing, and the time in which the amplitude becomes half the original value, right? So means what? So the amplitude, overall amplitude factor is what? A into minus A into e power minus bt by 2m, that will equate to A by 2. Then we'll take a logarithm on both sides, means ln half is equal to what? Minus bt by 2m. Ln half means minus ln 2. So minus minus gets cancelled. So from here we'll get that time, the corresponding time. So the corresponding time will be 2m into ln 2 divided by b. That is the time in which the amplitude becomes half of the original value because of the damping. And here the omega dash, which is the angular frequency, right? So we can look at the expression for this also, root of k by m minus b square by 4m square. Now the detailed solution in terms of how do we get the differential, how do we get the solution for the differential equation, that is not something that we are going to cover here, but you can look at the final expressions. Now if you are just having, like, we have a, as I said, the spring mass system, we just give it a push, or so we just pull it down or push it up and leave it. The oscillations that will perform, right, is what we call as the free oscillations. Like any of the things that we discussed before. So when you just give it the disturbance and leave it like that, we call it as what? The free oscillations. The free object which is in free oscillation motion, right, will be oscillating with its natural frequency. So that's what we have seen all the expressions, right? If you have a spring mass system, what is it? The omega value will be equal to what? Omega value will be equal to root of k by m, like that. So we have from there we can get even the time period. All these things we have seen before. So every object which is in free oscillations will be oscillating with its natural frequency. Natural frequency depends upon various factors, the geometry of the object, the mass of the various other factors also, and in what kind of an arrangement or configuration the body is kept. So there are various factors that determine the natural frequency of the object. So we don't have the coverage in terms of how each and every object will have its natural frequency determined, and all these things is a little bit beyond our purview. But the idea is, okay, so every object, it will give some disturbance and let it oscillate, right? It is going to oscillate with its natural frequency. Such oscillations are called as what? Free oscillations. Now, as we said before, right? So, because there will be damping, so if a person is swinging, there is damping. So, damping, it is not just because of the damping of the medium in which the oscillations are happening. There will be a lot of other damping effects due to the contact points, etc. That and all we will not cover here anyway. Because of the damping, what we will say is the oscillations amplitude keeps decreasing over a period. We have seen that already, how it will decrease. Mathematical expression also we have seen. So how do we sustain these oscillations then? We will have to keep applying a force. So we sustain the oscillations by applying a force. Such oscillations are going to be called as what? Forced oscillations. Because of damping, the free oscillations will die down. And to sustain these oscillations, we have to keep applying force. Such oscillations are called as what? Forced oscillations. When we are having the forced oscillations, under some specific condition, we will talk about this resonance idea. We will see that. So if you are having a periodic force that is applied with a frequency or with an angular frequency omega d. Okay, so the natural angular frequency, let's say, is omega. Here we are using the angular frequency of the periodic force that you are applying is what? Omega d. So that's why the periodic force expression is what? F naught into cos omega d into t. This is the periodic force that you apply. The total force acting on the object, which is the mass of the object times acceleration, will be what? Minus kx, the restoring force, minus b into v, the damping, plus we will get this additional, the periodic force. This is what is this part? The periodic external force that is applied to sustain the oscillations. Again, we can write it as what? D square x by dt square. If we bring these two terms to the left, they will become positive plus. V can be written as what? Dx by dt. Overall, what we have? M into d square x by dt square plus b into dx by dt plus kx is equal to what? F naught into cos omega dt. Now the solution of that, again, that's a differential equation. We will not go into the details of how the solution comes. The final solution is going to be like this. The position of the particle, how it changes with respect to time, will be given by what? A into cos omega d into t plus phi. Here the A, the amplitude part, right, is given as what? F naught by m square into omega square minus omega d square the whole square plus omega d square b square whole power half. So the b is basically what? Our we can say the damping factor. B is going to quantify what is the level of damping. Higher the value of B means what? More damping. Lesser the value of B means less damping. Similarly, this phi, how do we get the phi value? Tan phi will be equal to minus V naught by omega d into x naught. So what is this? M is the mass of the particle. V naught x naught are what? The velocity and displacement of the particle at the starting time, where we will start applying this periodic force. So this is a particular solution. So what we call it as, in differential equations, right, we'll call it as the particular solution. So here when we try to analyze the results of the solution that comes from the differential equation, right, what we will be able to see is clearly this amplitude. So as the omega d and omega d is what? The angular frequency of the applied force. Omega is the natural frequency of the body. When they are approaching each other, means omega d by omega ratio will be what? Approaching to 1. We can see that the amplitude will be what? Reaching its peak, because here in the denominator everything is non-negative. So when you have omega square and omega d square getting cancelling each other, right, that's when the A is going to have a peak value. And we can see, like, if you have the damping factor less, obviously the peak amplitude is going to be higher. Here you can see B is equal to what? 50 gram per second, least damping. Here B is equal to what? 70. Here B is equal to what? As damping is more, the peak amplitude also gets what? Reduced. Why? You can see here, where is the B coming? B is coming in the denominator. B is less means what? The peak amplitude will be higher. Now here if you try to analyze the amplitude part alone, right, so we can look at two cases. One is what we call as the small damping case. Small damping means what? B will be less. So here we are not just saying B is less, this entire factor can be neglected. Small damping. So if that factor is neglected, right, look at this, what we will have? Denominator m square into omega square minus omega d square, the whole square. There is a root, means what you will get? F naught by m into, because there is a root means m will come out, omega square minus omega d square. So this is what the amplitude when we have small damping. Small damping means the second term we will just neglect it. And if you are having the driving frequency, means the frequency or angular frequency of the applied force, that is what we call as the driving frequency. That's why we are putting omega d. That force is basically driving the oscillations. If the driving frequency is very close to natural frequency, means what? Omega E is almost close to what? Omega d. In that case, look at this term can be neglected. So we'll have omega d square into b square the whole power half, means what is it? F naught by omega d into b. So this is what is the condition for the resonance. So what is the condition for the resonance? When the applied frequency or the driving frequency of the force is equal to the natural frequency of the swinging object or the oscillating object, then we will have the amplitude reaching its peak value. How do we, so in practical sense, right, if somebody is pushing you, if his timing is pushed in such a way that it is coinciding with the natural frequency of the swing rate, then what we will observe, like, if his correctly timing is, it's not about the effort that he puts. If he is correctly timing his force applied, right, we will see that the swing will start getting higher amplitude. I'm sure this, if you experience swinging, you will realize it. Like if the person who is pushing, not just about the amount of force he will apply, but more about the timing of how he at what frequency he will apply the force. If the frequency of the driving force is matching the natural frequency of the swinging object, then we'll see that the swings will be happening at a higher amplitude. That is what we'll call as the resonance condition. So resonance will be able to achieve higher amplitude. And some of the things, like there are some applications of this concept of resonance, both in terms of the mechanical aspects as well as the electrical circuits. In +2 again, when we talk about the alternating current, right, there we'll again discuss about this resonance condition, etc. Just keep a note of it. There again we'll talk about the damping, all these things we'll review them, not from the mechanical oscillations perspective, but from the electrical systems perspective. That we will see again there. But this is what is the condition of resonance. Now, if you look at soldiers marching on a bridge, every bridge or construction that will have its natural frequency depends upon, as I said, lot of factors. The material on which, using which the bridge is made up of, what kind of connections it is, having, so on and so forth. When they are marching at a frequency which if is coinciding with the natural frequency of the bridge, then the bridge will start basically what? Vibrating with a higher amplitude. So that leads to what? That will basically lead to, so the bridge is vibrating with a higher amplitude, means that can completely cause damage to the bridge. That's why when the soldiers are going on the bridge, they will be usually asked to go out of step, means they will not be marching together. So this is the precaution that people generally take when they are going, the soldiers are moving on a bridge. And we even have, like, if you are kind of interested, on YouTube also you can find a lot of videos of how the wind blow which is happening in a particular direction at a frequency is able to cause the bridges to swing with a very high amplitude and even damaging parts of the bridges. And one of the things, like, when the earthquakes are happening, it is because of the seismic waves. When the damage of the earthquake is observed, you will see that some of the buildings will be like totally gone, so totally damaged. We'll see that the other buildings will stay to a good extent intact. The obvious question is why the damage is not happening uniformly. Again, the same reason. When the earthquake is happening, it will not create uniform damage to all the buildings. Why? Because even though the buildings might be made up of same material, same strength, all these things, every building will have its natural frequency. It depends, as I said, various other factors also. If the frequency at which the earthquake is happening is kind of coinciding with the natural frequency of the construction, then it is going to be oscillating or vibrating with a peak amplitude. The resonance condition will be achieved, and that means what? That means there is going to be maximum possibility for the destruction to happen to the building. Whereas some buildings, right, the driving frequency and the natural frequency of the building might be too different. In that case, the building will basically have almost kind of no damage happening. So that is another practical application of where do we see the resonance. So this is about the concept of forced oscillations and resonance. With this, we have kind of covered whatever is important from JEE Mains and advanced perspective from the oscillations topic. Next, we'll meet in the waves.